you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the big show. As always, the Chris Voss Show is a family that loves you but doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as your mother-in-law, because she never loved you anyway. Anyway, we got an amazing young man on the show. We're going to be talking about his insights, how he's helped so many people, and how he can help you too. You can go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss One, the TikTok, and all those crazy places on the internet. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Today, we're going to be talking with Devin Parks, and Devin is going to give us some insight into his life and some of the great things he's created. He's the CEO of Clean Slate Consulting. He's dedicated his career to helping individuals and business owners take control of their financial futures. He's successfully assisted hundreds of people in repairing their credit, improving their scores, securing business funding, and giving them the financial stability they need to achieve their goals. And he's very successful at a very young age. Maybe you can put your teenagers on this show to listen in. So welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Fantastic, Chris. Great to meet you, my friend.
Great to meet you as well. Welcome to the show. Give us any .coms. Where do you want people to get to know you better on the interwebages in the sky?
Where can people find me?
That's correct.
Yes, Work with Devin on Instagram, on YouTube, and then also the business is named Clean Slate Consulting. So if you need any of our services, just Googling that. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina. But Work with Devin and Devin Parks. They'll be able to find me on any platform.
So can do you do work with people all over the nation, or are you only locally able to do work in that general area that you live in, or the offices
all 50 states. All 50 states. So it's a nationwide business. It's a virtual business. We can help anyone in any situation, a good credit, bad credit, no credit. If they're looking to get better credit, I'm the guy to call. If they're looking to get money, I sell money, Chris, and they can come to me for that as well. Business funding, personal funding, that's part of what we do, and the two businesses go hand in hand.
Tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get down this road? You're a fairly young entrepreneur. You've done some things in your life that are fairly extraordinary. Tell us about your journey. How were you raised? What were your influences? How did you become an entrepreneur, et cetera, et cetera?
So my parents met in an NA meeting, Narcotics Anonymous. It's similar to an AA meeting, but it's for drugs.
Wow.
And so my parents were crazy when they were younger. They did anything and everything that they could get their hands on. And I always say that two people came together and they met in a place to go get better, and they created me. And they were never together, and I lived with my mom and my dad when I was younger, so I had both households, 2 Christmases, the whole split family story. I grew up in, the lower area with my dad, and then with my mom, I grew up in the richest area in Charlotte, which is down in Valentine. I dropped out of high school, Chris, and I'd like to say that I got an early start. High school didn't make sense to me. I didn't know what I wanted to do after high school. And I knew that I didn't want to go to college right away. So my plan was to take a gap year, try and find a job, try and make some money. And I, knew that was the plan. But I kept asking people throughout high school, do they really ask if you, have a high school diploma, or can you just tell them, do you really have to show that off like you do a college degree? And so people would say, no, they do not ask. And Chris, if it doesn't make sense to me, I'm probably not going to follow down that path. And high school didn't make sense to me after that point and after learning that, so I dropped out. Now, it wasn't for the right reasons. I didn't become successful right away. I did it to focus on partying, fun, friends, girls, you name it. So I did all of that stuff very, very early on and kind of got that out of my system early on, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So That's led me to my journey here today at 27. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't touch any substance or get high in any way because my goal is being my best self, and I don't think walking around drunk or high is your best self. So we'll touch on that later. But 18 years old, my first sales job. So I got a sales job selling cars. Second month, Chris, I was number one. Mm-hmm. All I did was listen to what my managers and what my bosses told me to do. I followed the blueprint, and it worked. And so that was it. I just focused on being number one. That's always been, a big goal of mine. After that, I got a job, selling digital marketing and putting business owners on the front page of Google. So if you go online looking for a plumber, I would put them on the front page of Google through ads and through SEO. So I'd call on the second page of Google, Chris, and say, hey, do you know a guy named Chris Voss? Do you know John Smith? Do you know Adam, whoever? Those guys are getting the phone call when, someone's going in your area looking for a plumber. Does Chris do better work than you? And they'd say, heck no. Chris is one of the worst guys in the area. He's just got a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. And so I say, if you give me 15 minutes later on today, I can put you there tomorrow. So I did that job for 4 years, Chris. I made over 150 cold calls a day. Rejection is in my DNA. And so we only set 3 to 5 appointments out of 100 calls, 150 calls. And so I'm used to getting told no, and it really gave me thick skin from a young age.
Wow.
After that, I decided to go out on my own and venture out on my own and start my own business. And here we are today, my friend. 40 employees. It's a multiple 7-figure business. And I've made it my mission to share my story with others. And that's all I'm here to do is inspire and give my message to the world, my friend.
And you started your business when? Yeah, I know you said that, but
give it to me again. Over 4 years ago. It started as we went and did a solar company, which was a successful business. It just takes a long time to get your money back with solar. The panels have to hit the roof. You have to go through a lot of permitting and all that kind of stuff, and you don't get paid until the lights turn on through those solar panels. So it just takes a little bit longer to collect cash that way. Great money in solar, but with credit, we make it back pretty much right away. When I run that online, I collect the cash that I spent with Facebook and all these different advertising platforms pretty much immediately, so I can turn my cash quicker.
Well, congratulations to you, man. A lot of people they're screwing around, they're playing, they're getting drunk, partying in their 20s. I mean, a lot of people do that. I'm not passing judgment. I did a little bit of that, but I was also started building my first company since 18. So I think what you're doing is exceptionally smart. You're building a future for your life instead of, getting into the drugs, rock and roll, and all that fun stuff. And you're building a thing. You've got 40 employees on your belt. Congratulations, man. That's some work that you're putting in there. And what an inspiration for young people. We hear, so many young people, they don't care. They're not really ambitious right now, especially young men. And part of it is, what's going on in the dating scenes and hookup culture. But, I barely graduated high school either. I very early on, and I wrote about this in my book, Beacons of Leadership. I didn't see much value in high school either. The only thing I learned of any real value in high school was typing class and how to basically, QWERTY key a typewriter so that I could send invoices and I could communicate with my clients. My business partner, he didn't, so he used to henpeck our invoices. We took turns every weekend. But at 18, I started my first company, and while everyone was breeding and partying and having fun, I was grinding away like you probably are when you started this company several years ago. And it changed my life, and the skills that I learned from starting my own business, I can use in multiple businesses that we've started. And so I'm really proud of what you did. I think it's exemplary. And, the fact that you come from a challenged environment, do you think that coming from living in 2 different households, seeing both sides of the rich and poordom, sort of proximity neighborhoods, did that have an effect on you, think, and maybe you wanting to have that drive to do something better?
1,000%. A girl from high school that I knew, I ran into her not too long ago, and she said, Devin, do you remember the number one question you used to ask people? It was, what do you do? That's all I was trying to figure out, Chris. I was just trying to figure out what to do. And realistically, even to this day, it's still one of the questions that I ask when I meet somebody. What do you do for a living? Pretty much is what we want to know. And why do we ask that question? Because it's where they spend the majority of their time, right? They're spending the majority of their time earning a living. And so I want to know what people do. I want to know how they do that. And I want to know how they choose to spend that time. It absolutely did play a factor. I'll tell you, I got to see a rich lifestyle, and I got to see all of that gated communities. My first girlfriend lived where Panthers players live in a gated community, and her parents and me didn't get along too well. I wasn't the best kid. But man, much love to her. And, I got to see all of that from a very, very young age. So it was extremely inspiring to me. And all I thought in my head, and since then, was if the best exists, then why can't I have it? And so I want the best experiences, my friend. I want the best food, the best clothes, the best access to healthcare, the best everything that exists. And I don't understand for the life of me why people don't try to achieve that stuff. And Chris, to go back to what you said a little bit earlier, the main thing that I hear from those people is they don't care. Yeah. They don't care about that area of their life. And a lot of people think if you make a lot of money and you've got kids, then you can't be a good father because you're going to be taking time away from those kids. And Chris, they think it's this or that. And my motto is, it's this and that, okay? So you've got to be well-rounded in all areas, my friend. You have to be well-rounded, especially as a man. You've got to be capable of, doing these things and providing for your family. And, I'm just here to show people that it's absolutely possible. And that's it. We're here to help people with their credit. If you think about credit, it's one of the most important part of your financial aspects in the U.S. And so I call myself, a financial personal trainer. So I'm basically helping them fix their finances, helping them get access to jobs, better loans, better cars, or better interest rates, I should say, houses, all that kind of stuff they may not have had before. We're changing lives one life at a time.
I love it, man. This is the beauty of being in the field of being an entrepreneur. You solve problems for yourself, you solve problems for other people. The more you solve problems for the people, the more you're likely to win. Let's talk about some of the things that you've done there. You've become an expert in credit and business funding. Let's talk about what's going on there. I recently heard that Americans' credit card debt, I think, or consumer debt, so that may include autos, is at an all-time super high, like the highest it's been since the 2008 crisis. What are some of your thoughts on what's going on in the credit markets in the world and stuff like that?
Chris, the problem is, man, is they're using this money like it's their own money.
Saw that in 2008.
That in all sums it up right there. Because it has their name on that card, Chris, they think that it's their money.
Yeah.
It's not their money. It's a line of credit from the bank that you must what? You must pay back. And so the problem is, Chris, is people are using that money as an emergency savings account to bridge that gap until they get paid next. And that's the wrong thing to do, my friend. If the money is not inside of your bank account, you do not use it when it comes to personal credit. Now, with business credit, what we help people do, and actually how I started my money, was with someone else's money. Oh. So, Chris, bottom line is I found out what a bank was. And what is a bank? A bank is a brick building that passes out money. That's what they do. And so I didn't have any money at the time and really wanted some. And so found out that I needed to fix my credit, needed to get access to credit, and then I could use someone else's money to start my own business and to fast track things. So that's exactly what I did. Chris, I bought a mentorship to show me the credit game and show me the funding game. So I learned from someone else, as we do even in high school. Then you go to college and pay someone and learn from them. Athletes have a coach. I don't get why people nowadays don't think that they can ask for help. And Chris, it's mainly their egos. It's just saying, hey, I need some help. I don't understand how to do it. And as a man, I can understand why that's difficult, saying, hey, you just got to help me help show me the ropes. I just don't know what turn to take. And I wasn't afraid to say that at a young age. Heck, remember I told you my number one question was, what do you do? What do you do? Show me what to do. So I've never been scared to ask that, and people don't need to be scared to ask that, and they need to start caring. Back to the credit card debt, it's not your money. It's not your money. And so do not use a credit card if the money is not in your account. The beauty of credit, you get rewarded and you get to partner up with the richest people in the world, which are banks, when you use it properly. It's been 4 to 5 years since I've gotten my credit fixed, Chris. I haven't paid for a flight or for a hotel in 5 years.
Oh, wow.
All due to credit card points.
Wow.
So just using that money correctly, knowing what cards to use, you get rewarded by using credit card points. And so that's what people need to be using it for. That's what it's designed for. But with business credit, it doesn't affect your personal credit if you max these cards out or utilize these cards, because they understand that in business, it takes some time to make money. So what I did was I got a business credit card. I put a couple $1,000s on a mentorship. I put a couple $1,000s into Facebook ads. I worked my tail off in order to answer those phone calls, sell those deals. And when the deal sold and I got the money in my account, I paid the credit card back, and everything since then has been profit.
Nice. Way to go. You invest in yourself. You're willing to learn. You're willing to ask questions. You were that person, what's the old adage? Give a man to fish and he'll eat for a day. Teach him to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. And you're willing to put the work in. You're willing to ask the hard questions. You're willing to suspend your ego that I don't know everything and I'd like to learn everything. And it's so simple what you did. You looked around the world and it was like, I want to figure out a way to make this work for me. When a lot of people, they just don't design their life when they're young. Like, that's one thing I notice is a lot of people just don't design their life when they're young. They just take what society hands them. And that's kind of what you've referred to a little bit when you say, people just kind of go along. They just kind of, what do you do now? Go to high school. What do you do now, Dad? This sounds like Fight Club right here. The bathtub scene. What do you want to do now? I don't know. Go to college. What do I do now, Dad? I graduate college. Get married and find a woman to get married. And so people just go along, okay, we'll have a family and have kids. There's nothing wrong with that. The question you have to be asking is, am I making these choices consciously? Is this my will? Is this the design of my life? As opposed, am I just doing what society tells me is will make me happy, and then I'm going to wake up at 30 or 40 and find out I'm very unhappy? The reason a lot of men...
On that note, Chris, I tell people life is literally is as easy as this. Life is literally as easy as this. It's getting a pen and a piece of paper, and it's designing that life that you said, and it's writing down those goals. So let's just take fitness for a second. So if you want to get fit, you write down, goal is to be fit, and try to get as specific as possible. And then under that one goal, you write an A and a B, 2 actionable steps in order to achieve that goal. Go to the gym and eat healthy. And so that right there is the game plan for getting fit. And all you have to do from there, from that piece of paper, is transition that onto a calendar, show up to that event, and do it on a consistent basis. That's achieving your goals. And Chris, the bad part is, some people never get out that sheet of paper and pen, just like you said.
Yeah, and design their life, make choices. That's why a lot of people, they have midlife crises. They there's an old thing about guys who, they buy a sports car and they chase hot women around when they're 40 and 50. Part of it's because they peak in their value and they earn their most money in their 50s. Men do. That's when we really hit our stride. But also it's because they realize they lived a life they didn't design or choose. Really, they kind of just went with the flow, and they're like, wow, I can design my life now. I can just do what I want. And I think both men and women do that these days, where they reach a point midlife where they go, hey, I want to do things that are my choices now instead of kind of what maybe society or what other things were telling me to do. So I think it's great you're doing that. And talk to us about, I imagine there's either people that have credit issues that need repair, or they're gonna need repair when they default on all this. There's lots of layoffs around the country starting. I mean, just not from, it's very 2025, I should make out for people who watch these years from now on YouTube. But, there's lots of layoffs going on with the government, but there's also layoffs going out on the marketplace. I just heard that one of the big health companies just laid off 25,000 health workers. I can't remember who it is off the top, but that's a lot of workers. And the job market is already tight. When I talk to job market people that are out there, they're having to send thousands of resumes to get a job. So there's probably going to be some default coming. That's what I'm saying. And they probably need some credit repair or negotiations or different things along those lines. Can you give some, tips or ideas to people? Maybe they're struggling in credit, or maybe how to prevent future problems coming up if you do end up short cash?
Yeah, so what happened to me was the reason I got into credit repair, I had a payment and a collection from an old watch that I bought from my first car dealership. So I purchased a watch, and Chris, I missed my last payment on that watch, and it was only like $100. So we're talking no money at all. I missed that payment, and I called the collection company that owed the debt, and I paid off the balance. What happened is the balance went to zero, okay, but it still showed up as a collection on my credit report.
Yeah.
It still showed up as a collection. And so what happens is there's a famous saying in credit repair where if they can't prove it, they must remove it. And so when there's certain documentation that you ask for in the credit repair business, we know that A, humans make mistakes. We know that B, all of that stuff is not in the files and filed like it should be. There's errors on credit report, and consumers are entitled to up to $1,500 for every error you find on your report. So if we find one of those reports, all we have to do is say, hey, Mr. Credit Company, if you don't remove this, we can take it to court and we can, sue you for up to $1,500. And so those are some of the things that we help people with, is finding those inaccuracies, finding those things that shouldn't be on their report. But more importantly, the stuff that is there is having that company prove it. And if they can't prove everything down to the T, they must remove it. And so we always say you need to start with credit repair first. Because if they can't prove that item, they're no longer allowed to report it. And no longer being allowed to report it means that they need to remove it.
Yeah.
So our company offers a results or refund guarantee. Chris, those are the only two things that will happen. They will either get results or they will get a refund. So we're just like an attorney who doesn't get paid unless you get paid in a settlement. We do not get paid unless our clients get negative items removed from their report, which is the best case scenario. And it also makes sure that our goals are aligned from day one.
Well, that's important.
Yeah. Start with credit repair. That's the bottom line. That's the advice that I would have for them. Look into credit repair. Look into doing that, and look at getting with a company like mine that offers that results or refund policy. Check out the reviews online. Make sure that they're a reputable company, because some of these guys that you see on Instagram and all this stuff, how do you even know if what they're saying is true? And so with us, we're verified. You can look us up. You can Google our business and see that, we've got amazing reviews. And so that's the difference between me and, any other credit repair company. But results or refund, it just makes sure that our goals are the exact same.
My understanding from what I've seen off the internet and just compiling stuff is, like you say, they don't have the data. A lot of this stuff where they basically resell the credit file, whatever, the credit reporting file, the collection. A lot of this stuff, it's kind of like in 2008. I was in the mortgage business for 20 years and crashed in 2008. And what's interesting was a lot of the mortgage loans have been sold so many times. There were paperwork that had never been signed, disclosures that were never made. There was forgeries. People were forging because people hadn't gotten all the disclosures they'd gotten. Yep. And there was all these errors to a point that some homeowners, by challenging it, were able to get their home free and clear, because they're like, you didn't do your due diligence on your mortgage, so that's not a mortgage. And what was sad is a lot of people abandoned their homes, mailed in their keys to the banks, because I would see that in my consulting I do. They'd have what they call jingle mail, and it was people mailing in their keys. When a lot of these people, I mean, it was at wholesale, how crazy it was, how much the loan packages had never been signed in some portions, and the data hadn't been transferred, buying the files and credit, and this is still back in the day where a lot of this stuff was still hard copied. Yep. So my understanding is the credit reporting companies are sometimes the same way. They don't have all this data that they're supposed to have on it. And I think there's some legality as to whether or not they actually have jurisdiction. Is that true? Or I don't know. I just see these videos come by the feed.
Yeah, 100%. And so you're exactly right that when this information gets passed on from company to company to company, then they're not providing the right documents. And here's the thing too, Chris. They have to mail in everything that we're requesting to Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And so eventually with persistence, they may just let it go in some cases. And there's that kind of scenario, but then there's the other ones of what you're talking about where the right documentation is not there. There's inaccuracies on their credit report that we're highlighting and circling and sending to them saying that that's a violation. And Chris, if they tell you that you owe 10 grand and you only owe 9, that's a false thing on your credit report. It's not supposed to be there. And so those kind of violations, my friend, are exactly what we point out. I want to say I saw a company on Shark Tank one time. This was doing the same thing for parking tickets. So what the company would do is if your VIN number wasn't correct, your plate number, the space number, if the parking attendant didn't file everything correctly, the company would challenge anything that they found, and they take a 30% fee of what the parking ticket was, and you just pay them. You get to save 70% by going through that company and just challenging your parking ticket. So it's the same. We're kind of sticking it to the man.
If I ever live in New York, that'd probably be a thing I should know about.
I call it valet. So I just want to get there quicker. So I'll take a parking ticket, and I just need to get in and out, and I promise I'll only be a minute.
What if they tow you though?
That's where I get into a lot of trouble. Is the boot on the car, the tow. So you got to be careful. You kind of got to know your spots. You got to pick out how much time you're going to be in there. But it ends up being more time if it's a boot. So trust me, I've been in that situation. I try to say if there's not valet, I'm not going. But it's just a joke. Obviously, we'll find some parking. But yeah, I mean it's always the case.
Mm-hmm. So you have several different packages on your website. I see there's a professional credit disputing package, different services you can upscale from there. Let's talk about, you have credit funding options and credit monitoring solutions. Talk to us a little about some of those options.
Yeah, so everybody should be tracking their credit, and so we use a company to help us do that. We're the guys that file the disputes. We use a company to track their credit. And so if they don't know what's on their credit report, right now they can contact our company, and for $1, they can get their credit report from all 3 credit bureaus. So we have that option for people. As far as the funding, Chris, it's one of the coolest things in the world, and one of the best things, in my opinion, to sell is money. I sell money. And so we've got access to every type of loan, program, and type of financing that exists in the United States of America. So That's what I do. That's what we help people get access to. And we specialize in 0% interest credit card funding. And you heard me right, 0% interest. And you're thinking, why would a bank give out money at 0% interest? They do it for an introductory rate. So anywhere from 6 to up to 24 months with some banks, they will give you money at 0%. And they do this to get you as a customer, to get your name into the system, and to hopefully sell you other products in the future. A home loan, another loan, a car loan, all of those things. But banks understand that there's so many banks out there. On every street in America, you're going to come across a bank, right? Mm-hmm. And so, it's hard for consumers to navigate that. And Chris, I like to think about it as a real estate agent for cash. The same way you tell a real estate agent, I'd like a $200,000 home, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. How long did that take to explain? 2 seconds. And so what they come to us and do is say, I'd like $100,000. That took 1 second to explain. And what a real estate agent goes and does is they knock on every single door. They do all the research. They do all the heavy lifting, and they take a small fee for doing all of that hard work and heavy lifting. And that's the same thing we do when we go and find people cash. So
Wow.
with the 0%, they pay us a 10% fee on the back end. And that money, Chris, comes off of the credit card that we get them. So they could have $0 in their pocket right now and have a good credit score, and we can go and get them the funding that they're looking for to start that business. They pay us our fee out of the funding that we get them, and they've got the rest of that cash to go and make. And they've got it for 10% that we get them for 6 to 24 months. So that's what we help them do with the 0%. I'm a big fan of credit cards. As I mentioned earlier, haven't paid for a flight for 4 to 5 years. And so that's why people should be using these credit cards and getting those instead of just a loan, because a loan has a specific interest rate. You've got to then go and pay it back throughout a certain amount of time rather than just making your minimum payment like a credit card. So it's a lot better to use a credit card, and you get rewarded for it. So that's the business funding side of things. That's the credit monitoring side of things. And then as far as the credit repair, only $99 a month to be able to dispute up to 15 items on your report, 5, 5, and 5 on each bureau. And that typically is plenty for people. If they end up having more than that, we do have packages that allow them to be more aggressive. But that typically covers everyone. And that is, they just have to pay that money until they're done. And, we're extremely incentivized to finish in a hurry because most people that we only advertise online, I advertise to business owners and say, hey, if you're looking for funding, come click this ad. We can help you get there. And if they end up having bad credit, we'll help them out with the credit repair. No business owner wants to have bad credit. We'll consult them. We'll help them navigate those roads and get them the funding that they're looking for. So I only do 2 things, Chris, credit repair and funding. We keep things super simple.
That's the great way. You got to take care of your credit, folks. You got to be able to buy cars, houses. The other thing I watch on a lot of TikTok is I see these folks that buy these cars at insane prices. Number one, the prices went through the roof during COVID.
Me included.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is my Corvette in the back. I first bought a Camaro. It was around a $30,000 vehicle was the first car that I purchased at an 18% interest rate for 72 months. Geez. Chris, stay with me, my friend. All right, stay with me. 18% interest rate. If I would have made every single payment for those 72 months, that $30,000 car would have cost me $49,000 and some change. This is what people don't understand. And you're telling me that somebody watching this won't pay $99 for a risk-free, guaranteed way to see if they can fix their credit? Of course they should. And so that's why I do what I do, because I've been in that situation. Not only have I had bad credit, but I was on the bad end of it, of having bad credit. And Chris, think about it. You got to put a lot of money down when you walk into those dealerships because they see that you're invested. And so most people don't have that money to put down. When I walk into a dealership, or when someone that has good credit walks into a dealership, we like to say you can just point at what you want and sign that paperwork. And so, that's how it works when you get good credit. You get to maneuver how you want to maneuver.
Yeah, you get all those credits you talk about where you get to travel and you get free stuff. I get all sorts of stuff through my Amex cards and stuff. It's really helpful on Amazon. You're like, hey, there's a bunch of credit on there. Yep. As we go out, give us people your final thoughts, how they can onboard with you, reach out to you, find out more, refer you to their friends. I notice you also have an affiliate tag on your site so people can help resell your products to make an extra buck too as well.
Yeah, 100%. Anybody can message me the words Chris Voss, and you can send me back and say that you found me on this podcast. We're going to do something special for all of Chris's viewers, and we'll give you, free tools, free resources, everything that you can imagine. And so if you just DM me the words Chris Voss, his name, we'll be able to give you something special. And guys, it's me that you're talking to in my own DMs. So I'm the one that answers those DMs personally. I have a full social media team. I have all these employees, but I still control my Instagram. And so if they have any questions, they can always send me a message there. I've got a link to book a call directly on my Instagram, which is Work with Devin. Also, if they know anyone that is interested in funding or credit repair, we pay heavy for referrals. So we pay $50 for every single referral that they send for credit repair. But the real money is within the funding. We give them 10% of the 10% that we collect. So to give you an example, if we get someone 50 grand, we make $5. That person makes $500 for submitting a name and a phone number to our business. So it's a great way that they can bring in some extra cash. But, we pay out for both. That's exactly where they can find me. The best place is always going to be Instagram, guys. I answer those messages directly. Heck, I'll even send you a video of me mentioning your name so you know that you're speaking to me directly. And, I'm here to help. That's my motto. Like Chick-fil-A says, my pleasure. Mine is I'm here to help, Chris. And so that's what I'm put on this planet to do. And that's what I get the most joy from.
I love the entrepreneurial journey, because this is really the thing. We help ourselves usually initially as entrepreneurs, and then we go, hey, I bet some other people need some help like this too. And we share it, and we're paid usually in direct proportion to the value that we give. And that's the beauty of it. That's why, we talk about entrepreneurism a lot. I think what you're doing is great. I hope people take this video and show it to their young kids, their teenagers. Being an entrepreneur is one of the greatest self-actualizing, self-accountability things. It's one of the greatest teachers. It builds you into a much different person, I believe, for what you go through. And if you can survive it, a lot of people fail in entrepreneurism. It's definitely worth the fight. And if you can make it work, you have skills that you can use all your life. I mean, I've made businesses, I've lost businesses in 2008. I've rebuilt everything. Once you have that skill, especially of sales, you can pretty much do just about anything. So thank you very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, man.
Chris, I appreciate your time, and thank you for it.
Thank you very much, Devin. Thanks to our audience for tuning in. Check out his website. You can go to Cleanslateconsulting.info. I believe, do I have that right?
Yes, you do.
And check that out as well. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss, one, the TikTok, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. And that should have us out. Great show, Devin.